All right, welcome back. Time for this week's Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan of CapitolBeatOK.com. Pat, you studied the grand jury testimony, New York Times reporting, other sources in the events at Ferguson, Missouri. What are your reflections on the recent events?
You know, I think a lot of people, it's obvious a lot of people all over the country are using what happened with the grand jury, which, as the president said, has the prerogative to reach the conclusion that it did. They're using the grand jury deliberations and Officer Wilson as kind of a surrogate for other issues. And that's real scary, as this was a legal proceeding. It was an outcome that at least some anticipated, especially as more evidence did become available, things that reporters found even before the grand jury reached its conclusion. Now, you know, Martin Luther King was one of my heroes as a kid, and he said, you can't overcome hate with hate, overcome hate with love. To whatever extent this surrogacy process is legitimate, and I'm not sure it is, but to whatever extent it is, the response needs to be one of love. And we need to reach out to each other and understand each other better all across the American spectrum and accept decisions that we disagree with. That's been hard for me to do, but I hope I'm preaching to the vast majority out there.
Speaking of decisions, you covered a news conference this week on a potentially very impactful state Supreme Court decision. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was fascinating. OCPA action, Dave Bond, and then from Maine OCPA, Jonathan Small, pulled together a big group of legislators to talk about the Supreme Court's deliberations on State Question 640, which is the measure that has required supermajorities for any tax increases ever since the early 1990s. And Jerry Fent, who's a very creative lawyer, but he's making the argument that it should also require a supermajority in the legislature and a vote of the people, even for tax decreases. Now, there was, in the oral argument, a couple of the justices seemed to be hinting they might buy that argument, which is frankly kind of shocking. But if they did, it could mean $1 billion in retroactive and going forward tax hikes. And it would have a particularly baneful impact in our rural areas because Oklahoma got with the program of the rest of the country on estate taxes, and it could result in huge income tax increases, also the gross production tax. So this is a troubling possibility. Let's watch and see what the court does. Hopefully they'll either not do what people are afraid of or do something in between.
All right, Pat, and quickly, as a journalist, as an Oklahoman, you're thankful for many things. Share some of that.
Yeah, in the newspaper this week, the City Sentinel, and I think I'll post it on Capitol Beat OK too, I got kind of mushy, believe it or not, towards politicians because as tough as I am on them, including our governor, I appreciate people that are willing to put themselves in the firing line, especially in the modern era with the job guys like you and me and other journalists do, scrutinizing people's lives. So I'm appreciative not only of groups like Other Options helping to feed people that are suffering from AIDS and their family, but also our political class for being willing to serve the people in a tough era.
Yeah. Well, you can read more about these and other topics at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron. Happy Thanksgiving.